milk collectors. There are so many products on the market that are marketed to collect your milk. What do we think about all of these products and how do they work? Let's have a little chit chat this morning about all of these different products, pros, cons, benefits, and how to use them. Let's kind of demystify all of this, right? So there are several different kinds of these milk collectors. There are passive milk collectors that just sit in the bra to collect milk that you would leak instead of using a nursing pad. You can then use that milk to either start stashing it if you collect quite a bit, or you could put it back on your nipple if you're trying to heal a wound, or you could feed that immediately back to your baby instead of pulling out your electric pump. But let's kind of talk about these ones that sit in the bra first. All kinds of different ones, right? So we have the Ladybug by Haka. We have the Alara by Lumama. We have the Milk-A-Save by Idaho Jones, and then the Lacticup. So there is some differentiation between these. So the Lacticup has a hole in the top, so this will not generate any suction at the breast. So you would just put this over your nipple and you would tuck it into your bra while you're breastfeeding or possibly pumping on the other side, and this would collect milk that leaks during letdown. Here's your gentle reminder, not everybody leaks. Leaking is not a sign of anything other than that you leak. Some people leak very little or not at all, and some people leak a lot. Leaking is not an indication of your milk supply. People with very low milk supply can still leak, and people with a huge massive oversupply may not leak at all. Leaking also slows with time. I expect your highest amount of leaking in the first 3 to 4-ish months. Some people will continue to leak throughout their breastfeeding journey, and a lot of people stop leaking over time. So I don't want you to be concerned if these products don't work for you, okay? But this is how they work for people who do happen to leak. So this is the Lacticup. This part is up. This is how you would then pour that milk out when you're done with your feeding. This one is very discreet. It's thin. It's going to sit in the bra. Only caution with this, it does have a silicone back to it. Too much pressure can cause damage to the areola and can cause inflammation to not help in your breastfeeding situation. So do be mindful with any of these. Too much is not always a good thing. Now this is the Lacticup in comparison to the Idaho Jones. Slightly different shape. Very similar profile. The difference with the Idaho Jones, this one has a hard plastic front and a silicone back. This one is all silicone. The front is a thicker silicone but still soft and squishy. Only difference with the Idaho Jones is it has a plug. So if you put this on the breast while breastfeeding and close the port and then push, you will get suction on here. So this will pull off more milk than what you would just leak, because you have the opportunity to create a vacuum. It does have a different back, so it's more of a oblong oval than a circle. Okay, so just subtle differences in these. These are fairly equivalent in terms of what they will do. They hold a smaller volume of milk and they're a slimmer profile, so they won't get knocked off by a baby if you're breastfeeding. So these are great in the first couple weeks if you're trying to build a small stash, if you don't want to use nursing pads, if you don't feel those are sustainable, or if you want to be able to feed back that milk to your baby. So those are those kind of milk collectors. Now again, new products are coming on the market all the time. So there could be 6 more different brands of those out there or coming out. Those are just 2 examples, right? Okay, so then we're going to look at these bigger milk collectors. This is the Haka Ladybug. This is the Alara by Lumama. This one does cup the breast with a bigger suction, okay? It also can suction on that breast, and it's going to have a separate chamber for your milk, whereas this one is all one chamber. They are bigger profiles, so they're more noticeable, but you could still tuck this into your bra while breastfeeding. These will both generate suction. How hard you push them on will determine how much suction you'll actually generate at the breast. Harder is not always better. We don't want to be causing inflammation and swelling of the areola around the nipple while you're breastfeeding or pumping, because that can result in milk that backs up or doesn't empty efficiently, which can cause plug ducts and mastitis or pain and damage. So again, be gentle with all of these products. With the Ladybug, if you have it open, you now have a passive milk collector that just collects what you leak. Anytime you close that and generate suction, that vacuum pressure usually pulls off more than what you would just leak. So be careful not to feed these collectors if you are switching sides and feeding the baby. I have seen these passive collectors, when there's a suction generated, foster an oversupply with a fast letdown. And those with true low milk supply, if you're feeding the freezer instead of feeding that back to the baby, some babies actually do need every single drop that is in that breast. So again, just be cautious with these. So this one, you would open the top and you can pour out when you're done. This one actually does come apart, so you could then pour your milk out. This one I don't like as much for pouring. I do feel like you could, we cry over spilt milk. So this one could be a little more dangerous if it's really full, to try to peel that off and then try to pour it out. So the Lumama one doesn't have a pour spout to it. This one will, again, has this kind of suction cuppy thing, which not always kind to every breast size and shape. So one that sits in the bra with no curve tends to be more useful for more breast sizes and shapes than one that has kind of a concave cup, because not every boobie has this boobie profile. Okay, so just be aware of that. Now let's talk about what I like to call the boob grenades. Boob grenades, right? So these do look like grenades to me. These suction onto the breast. If you just gently place them there, they're still going to have some kind of suction. So these, again, can be a great tool in your repertoire. Lots of brands have them. Kleenex tissue. Tissues are tissues, but we all know them by the brand name Kleenex, and we'll often call them Kleenex. So these are commonly referred to as Hakas. Haka is the brand. These are technically silicone pumps, is what they're most commonly termed at. Lactation consultants will often call these silicone pumps. Pump is an odd name because this does not replace a double electric or a single electric pump that actually pumps your milk. This is a passive pump that does generate negative pressure, a vacuum that will pull off more milk than you would normally passively leak. So for some people, this can be a good way to create a milk stash when you have a nice, robust milk supply, right? So a lot of people will put baby on one side, they'll pop this on the other side, they'll use that milk to either stash that milk, or if you are triple feeding or baby needs supplemented, some people will then take this milk and feed it directly back to the baby. Yes, you can actually use this to feed right back to the baby to make sure that baby is getting fed. Do be cautious with this milk. For most people, if they're using this on the first side, what you are pulling off is what a lot of lactation consultants will call drip milk, meaning it is the letdown milk that is leaked during breastfeeding. A baby who is actively vigorously sucking will be pulling milk from the full entire breast and not just at what's at the front of the breast. So for some people, this drip milk can be a more watery milk, not as fatty. And so for some people who are only using drip milk, if they let it separate, sometimes it will have a very thin fat layer. This can sometimes cause what we call lactose overload, which in the past we called a foremilk hindmilk imbalance. Do be cautious again if you're only collecting drip milk when you go back to work. For some babies, this can cause some digestive upsets and kind of flush through their bellies. Not everybody will have that happen. For some, it can pull off that more fattier milk as the feeding goes on, or if you use it at the end of the feeding, can have that higher fat content. But again, another caution sin of using these. I have also seen these pumps create massive oversupplies and fast letdowns because your body thinks, oh, I have 2 hungry babies. I have a baby feeding on this side and a twin feeding on the other side. So do be careful when you're using these. They have different sizes. They've got, and this again is a cross branding. Most brands will have a couple different sizes. There's a 4 ounce and a 5 ounce. I find the 5 ounces are very heavy and do tend to get kicked off more easily than the smaller sizes. The larger ones do often have a suction cup, ding, that you can then stick on something so that they won't fall over. My other really quick and dirty hack for when you're using one of these, if you're worried about it tipping, is just put it in your coffee mug. Okay, so when you're drinking your morning coffee and you're doing your little breastfeed of the day, you can stick it in there so that it doesn't get knocked over, because we definitely cry over spilt milk. There's a couple different ways that you can use these milk collectors. So you can just do what I call plug and play. You can just pop it on and leave it like this. You can do a gentle squeeze to get a gentle suction, or you can pull it back, give a harder squeeze. Now, the harder you squeeze, the higher the vacuum in there. Get your nipple centered in it. Keep it squeezed. Flip back the tunnel and then release. This will give you the biggest suction. It becomes a problem if when you peel this off, you notice a perfectly circular ring or there's redness or swelling. We do not want to cause swelling on the breast when using one of these. So be careful not to have so much suction that you end up cupping your breast, because that again can cause all kinds of other lactation issues that you would then want to call me for. Okay, so these are your different, more active milk collectors, silicone pumps. Every brand is a little different in the ring. You can see these are actually both Haka pumps, but this one has a ring around it, whereas this one is smooth. This one has a higher likelihood of leaving a ring around your breast if you have the suction too high compared to this. And every brand, again, is going to have a slightly different design, a slightly different shape, but do be aware of the lip on that. And then these are all of your more passive milk collectors that can still create a pump-like effect at the breast. So those are different ways that you can use these. What some people will do is they'll put it on the first side. They'll do it more passively with it open when their baby's on the first breast. And then when they switch sides, you can make it a little more active. Or you can put the baby to breast first, and then when you switch sides, tuck it in the first side. Lots of different ways to use these. Again, the biggest caution is we don't want to feed the product overfeeding the baby if the baby actually needs that milk. And we want to be cautious not to generate a massive oversupply, which has its own issues. Not an issue for everybody. Some people can do that and not see any other ramifications or problems. And for other people, it can lead to plug ducts, mastitis, pain, and damage. So there's all of your different milk collectors. Now you know.